Insperity presents the Small Business Advocate Show with Jim Blasingame, brought to you by FedEx, CareerBuilder.com, and Palo Alto Software. This is a copyrighted production of Small Business Network, Inc., all rights reserved.
We're back. It's 12 after the hour. Thank you very much for staying with me. I'm Jim Blasingame, and you're listening to the Small Business Advocate Show, and I'm glad you're here. Charlie Fewell is here. Charlie is a member of our Brain Trust. He's the president of Charlie Fewell and Associates, which is a consulting firm specializing in helping people just like you put your best foot forward, not only in the marketplace, not only out there with your customers, but with your first line of customers, your team members, the folks you work for, your employees. Charlie Fewell, welcome back to the show.
Thank you, Jim.
It's good to have you back. Hey, Charlie, you know, I often say that. I often say that your employees whom you work for, that's one of the big shockers for a lot of people when they start their business, is to find out that more than likely they're going to feel that they're working for their employees rather than the other way around. That's kind of a shock for folks, isn't it, sometimes?
Certainly is. You know, Jim, and when I teach a seminar about leadership and we contrast typical management behaviors versus leadership behaviors, typical management behaviors are, you know, my employees work for me, and it's more, not completely, but more narcissistic than a leadership role, which simply says, my job is to remove any obstacles for you to perform. Well, what do I need to do to remove, what do I need to remove, what do I need to change, how do I be the right kind of person so you can perform at your fullest? That's leadership.
Mm-hmm. A manager, when a lot of time when people think about managing, it's, you know, it's more dictatorial. It's my way or the highway, and it's more, you know, being more of a driver than a leader. But of course, the title doesn't matter. What matters is what you do. What really matters is what kind of relationship you have with your people, right? I mean, you may be called a manager, but that doesn't mean you have to manage your people. You can lead them if you so choose, can't you?
Oh, absolutely, and that's why when you mentioned in your intro about expectations, when I have clear expectation conversations with my people, I share with them what I expect of them. I expect them to take their piece of the business, whatever that piece is, a sales piece, a service piece, a customer interface piece, wherever their piece is in my company, and I teach them what I expect of them to deliver to the customer.
Right.
And all I do is hold them accountable to the expectations that I've shared with them. Now, Kim Blanchard, I love what Kim Blanchard said years ago about rescuing. You know, a rescuer, a manager who's a rescuer, when their people get in trouble, they swoop in and rescue them, and here I come to the rescue. Don't worry about it. I'll take that off your plate. Right. I'll handle it for you. You go do something else. And that way the employee does not grow. Now, by the way, that might get the sale. That might get the end result that the owner wanted. But when doing that, you lose the ability to develop your people through expectations, goals, and objectives that you would give them to grow them. Now,
well, it also might preclude a failure, which might be very valuable.
Go ahead.
Well, just the fact that if you swoop in before the thing, before there's a failure of some kind, you know, maybe not a big failure, maybe a small failure. Well, you didn't give the person the opportunity to learn anything, because, as you know, the best way to be successful is to learn how to fail, in my opinion.
That's powerful, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's powerful right there.
Failure is the harness mate of success.
You know, all of us who have children have rescued our children sometimes when we shouldn't have.
That's right.
Because we didn't want them to have that failure and feel that hurt. But when we allow them to fail, and even with employees, we allow them to fail, and then after the failure, we have a one-on-one and say, okay, now what did you learn from this? That's growing them. That's helping them become what their maximum capacities and capabilities are, and that's what I want, really, as a leader. I want them to perform to their maximum.
Right. But if you're going to do that, if you're going to take on that philosophy, which I think is, Charlie and I both agree is the right way to do it, when people do fail, they've got to believe that the only way for them to not fear failure, meaning, now it's not that they don't try to do a good job, they aren't prudent, They don't. It's not that they're trying to fail, but if something happens that we, even though we did our best, if you're not prepared as their leader, if you're not prepared to say, okay, what did we learn? If you're not prepared to redeem them after that, then they're not going to take those to take that initiative and to risk failure, are they?
Absolutely correct. They will not. They will not take that risk. They will simply do what the minimum is to keep their job, because they know if you don't redeem them, Jim, you're going to swoop down and punish them for the failure and not redeem them, not make it a learning experience.
And that's the difference between a company that stagnates and a growing company. And that's the difference between having employees and having people who are willing to take ownership, as you said earlier, of their piece of the business.
Absolutely.
That's what I want. I want employees to take ownership. I talk to my folks about this all the time. I want them to take ownership of whatever they're doing, because and I actually tell them, I want to work for you. I want you to own that, and with regard to that piece of our business, I want to work for you on that as your leader. What do you think, Charlie?
Absolutely. One of the obstacles that I hear in every seminar and every conversation when I'm discussing this with a leader or owner, but Charlie, you know how much time that takes? Yes, I do. Absolutely. Well, I don't have time for that because I've got to do this and I've got to, well, if you would let your employees do what they need to do, you'd have time. But that ability to let go of Jim, my business, I built this thing, it's mine. I mean, it's hard to delegate that to an employee. It's also hard sometimes to find the right employee. Another set of conversations I continually have with leaders and owners is that, well, you know, these guys I've got, they're pretty good, and I probably couldn't find anyone better. Well, if you think you can't, you can't.
Right.
And if you don't allocate the time to develop your team through expectations, goals, and objectives and conversation, you will never have what you're looking for, Jim, and that's that your team own the process and basically own the results and then work toward them as a team.
If you can't get your people to get to that ownership place, you'll never really be able to grow as the chief executive of your company, and your company will be held back because you as the CEO, Charlie, you've got to continually fire yourself from jobs you don't have to do anymore and hire yourself to do the next level of job. What do you think?
Isn't that true? You know, the last time we talked, Jim, you and I talked about this, where we say the owner basically must write his or her job description, and that job description does identify what I'm not going to do.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to do these things anymore. I'm going to delegate these things to team members, find team members that will accept that responsibility, and then delegate it, set expectations, set standards, set goals, and let them run with it. That's
Charlie,
exactly right.
You got to wrap it up for this segment. Give us your website, please.
CharlieFewell.com.
Fewell is the last name. Quick break, 20 after. We're going to talk some more about this leadership thing with Charlie Fewell after these messages. Stay with us.
Insperity presents the Small Business Advocate Show with Jim Blasingame, brought to you by FedEx, CareerBuilder.com, and Palo Alto Software. This is a copyrighted production of Small Business Network, Inc., intended for the private use of our audience. Except as otherwise provided by copyright law, all other copying, redistribution, or publication without prior written consent is prohibited. All rights reserved. Prohibited. All rights reserved. Prohibited. All rights